So the Battlefield 6 beta just concluded, and in this video, we're going to react to both weekends 1 and weekends 2 of the Battlefield beta, if you will, Battlefield 6 beta. And behind me, you'll see some of the different moments that I captured from the game that we're going to talk about here in this video. So by the time you're watching this video, the Battlefield 6 beta has long concluded, right? Like it's already wrapped up. It was free, it was open, capped at somewhere between 3 million players, possibly between all different platforms, PC, PS5, Xbox, what have you. So a lot of gamers showed out and showed up to try to provide as much data as possible for EA DICE to improve Battlefield 6 here for its upcoming October 10th release date. Now, me personally, I consider myself a Battlefield cash or noobs, whatever you want to label me. I play essentially for fun. I play the objective. I play for the slight competitive edge because I like to win. So regardless of the match type I'm playing, I want to play for the victor. I want to play for the W. The experience points also helps, you know, with grinding and just unlocking different weapon attachments and other different perks and things like that. But for the most part, I consider myself a casual Battlefield 6 player. And weekend 1 was a hell of an experience. Like I had a great time playing the beta during the first weekend. It felt like it was welcoming to either new beginners or those who have been out of the Battlefield ecosystem since possibly 4. You know what I mean? Those who might have skipped over Battlefield 1 and 5. And if you skipped over 2042, it's okay. Nobody blames you. But weekend 1 really felt like it was easy to pick up, just easy to jump into it. You know, I was getting some dubs, I was getting some eliminations. You know what I mean? I felt like I could actually get better in this environment. As you see me drop a player from way down there, I got very comfortable with the assault rifle and the carbine, especially the M4A1, right? And down the line, the AK-205, which seems to be a noob-friendly assault rifle. But we'll get to that a little bit in a second, because again, weekend 1 felt a little bit more welcoming to new beginners. I had a good time. I was excited to play, doing things like the revive. As you see here, it was done exceptionally well in the beta so far, what we've seen so far in Battlefield 6. Like playing as medic is not as robust because you're simply just, you know, zapping them and, you know, reviving them. But when you're able to just drag your teammate aside around the wall, maybe while another teammate is dropping, you know, suppressive fire behind you to get your battle buddy and, you know, in safety and cover and revive them, just kind of, it does, you know, a lot for the overall Battlefield experience, right? Like you really truly feel like you're in a squad or you're part of a squad and you want to keep as many of you alive as possible during, you know, each skirmish, like what I just lost there. But then came weekend 2, right? Like we live streamed one session of it. I thought that was enough because we played for 4+ hours, had a great time. You know what I mean? That's left up as it is if you want to check that out. But we played all, you know, a good portion during weekend 1, and then weekend 2 rolls around. And here's where things start to feel a little different. I did not have as good of a time as I did with the Battlefield 6 beta in the second portion with weekend 2. Whatever changes EA DICE possibly made, you know, whatever feedback they got from early access and, you know, in the early parts of August, and feedback between players from week 1, whatever changes they made was surely felt. There's been some other content published here on YouTube that goes over, you know, areas of concern like time to kill and time to death, those things like that. And I won't go into detail too much because I did experience these things up to a certain extent, up to a certain degree. Some I'll also say it definitely came down to my aim, you know, but between the delay in ping or maybe some server delay issues I was experiencing, some of my hits didn't register or they took longer to register, and it felt like I was dropped in a few hits, or like right there I was able to take a substantial amount of damage. But in other skirmishes you'll see I'm like dropped with 1 shot, 1 or 2 body shots, you know. And it was frustrating during weekend 2. I felt like as soon as I touched down on the map, bam, I'm getting taken out and I can't see where I got hit from. Or you drop, or you run around the corner, pop, and you dropped, and that's it. You respawn. You know what I mean? This was very consistent here during weekend 2 of the Battlefield 6 beta. I imagine others experience the same thing. I've watched some other videos here myself. I'm keeping my ears low to the ground to see who else experienced this. As you can see, I dropped that player fairly quickly, but yeah, the hit registry was just felt like a little off during weekend 2, and this is weekend 1 footage that you're seeing here that we're reacting to. This is weekend 1 footage, not weekend 2. And then the destruction, moments like that right there, where I shot up to the enemy above the rafter. I thought I took him down. As you can see, I didn't. But it just leads me into the destruction of Battlefield 6, because it's here where I think EA DICE really nailed it and, took the destruction to a whole nother level. Because when the debris is flying and, there's shrapnel everywhere and the dust is piling up, it's chaotic. Like, you really have to take a step back from what's going on and then evaluate how the battlefield has reshaped. And it's pretty neat because, yes, new cover opportunities open up, and then previously covered opportunities are exposed. It's pretty fun. And every time I experienced it, it just elevated the Battlefield experience. I just was immersed at that point with what was going on. I cannot wait for the campaign, and please give us a trailer so we can react to that too. But I cannot wait for the campaign to drop so we can see how that's going to transition over into, the main campaign. How we're going to experience Battlefield 6 like we did like we did here in the beta. How we'll experience Battlefield with this campaign. But weekend 2 felt, a little different. There were new maps and new modes open up. I like that you can do custom search because, to be very honest with y'all, I stayed mostly with King of the Hill and Domination. Between those two modes, those are my two go-to modes. Even when I'm playing COD, I just feel like in those two modes, playing the objective, you can get a good balance between like experience points and just points in general and eliminations by just playing around or playing the objective. So I stayed between those two game modes, and once I was able to just custom search to those, I just left it there. I didn't change any of the maps. The maps I thought had really good detail. In fact, the graphics in Battlefield 6, even in just the multiplayer, has been done extremely well. Shout out to EA and DICE for bringing us, that grit, nice depth, detailed graphics here. As you can see, some of the stills that I took from the game, and these are stills actually taken from the multiplayer, but you can see the detail on the ground. You can see the detail in the buildings. It's interactive. You're shooting a wall, things are flying everywhere. You're shooting leaves and they're flying all over the place. You're shooting like furniture and outside furniture, and it's just bouncing around, and everything's happening all at once. And it's pretty amazing how EA DICE has been able to, incorporate detailed graphics in a multiplayer. I didn't really have an issue or see an issue with the map size. Again, I don't typically play in game modes that feature all-out warfare where it's like aerial vehicles, just combat vehicles altogether or in general, but it's like, for example, here in this map, it did feel like it took me a while to get to some of the combat, but that's just the nature of this game mode and the nature of this map. But in some of the earlier, more close quarter combat maps that you saw, like Empire State, for example, the map didn't feel like it was too small, like I was constantly running into players. It's just that when I did, I typically, it didn't end well for me for the most part, but I didn't rack up an insane amount of eliminations or anything like that. But I did have fun competing, again, especially in weekend 1. But the maps weren't an issue. I can see them introducing more, obviously, or different sections of each of the maps that we got to experience in the beta. But definitely EA DICE, I foresee them, or knowing that they have to bring additional content if they really want to compete with the likes of Call of Duty. Earlier, I did mention the AK-205. That weapon was the meta for me here in the second portion of the weekend here, the second weekend beta, weekend 2 of the Battlefield 6 beta. I did use that rifle quite a bit towards, the back end. Early on, it was the M4 carbine, between those two. But I played with Xbox Series XS1 controller. I use both controller and mouse. And to be very honest with you guys, fam, I'm undecided on which one was the better look for me. I felt like I had more control over, the assault rifles using the keyboard and mouse, but I felt like I had more control overall with all the weapons I used with the controller. So I, went back and forth between the shotgun, which was OP, and it even helped me out in numerous scenarios, made me a little better. So they might do some balance in there. And that's one of the benefits to running a beta. We had some over 3 million players between all the different platforms. So a good chunk of data for EA Dice to make some changes before release and hopefully balance out the game. So yeah, I stuck to mainly King of the Hill and Domination, and I for the most part played in just the assault class. I wanted to try medic, but again, I just stuck to what I knew I was good at, and that's just assaulting. You're doing recon stuff, playing objective, laying down, supportive fire, suppressive fire. That's what I enjoyed to do. I didn't deal too much in vehicles, minus what you see here where I'm driving a tank. It was okay. It was what it was. I typically don't play Battlefield for, the vehicles. I typically like boots on the ground, and that's why I preferred some of the smaller game modes where it wasn't, full out, all out warfare, where it was more close quarter combat. But I drove the tank for a little while. Nothing too spectacular there. I didn't fly the jets either. I didn't do any of the aerial combat stuff. I drove the tank once and I was like, okay, that's enough for me. I prefer to be running on the map, bouncing out of cover, but doing things like shooting down a helicopter here, that was pretty fun. I will say that. But I prefer to be out of the tank, even with like an RPG or something, a homing missile to take that thing down. That's what I prefer. So, but even inside the tank, the graphics look good. Just an overall really good detailed looking game. As you can see here, just the mountains in the background there, the detail and the environment there on the ground. I mean, you really kind of had to take a step back, and even when the destruction stuff's going on, and the environment's being, destroyed all around you and things are just flying everywhere and you're getting shot at, you really do truly feel like a soldier on this massive battlefield. So they did nail or accomplish, that aspect, if that's what they were targeting. But it wasn't all, bells and whistles. There was some glaring issues that reared their ugly head here in week 2 of the Battlefield 6 beta. The lag in time to kill and time to death was noticeable and fairly inconsistent at times. And there's been a lot of different videos already published on YouTube that highlight some of the different hacks and cheats that, different players are taking advantage of in Battlefield 6, like different spots you can hide on the map and just, pluck players off rather easily. That was actually kind of funny. I tried to make it in that video. Cool. Didn't make it, but yeah, the hackers, the cheaters, they ruin the Battlefield 6 beta experience, at least so far, especially from a casual perspective, a new perspective like myself. It just was, not fun when they were able to take advantage of those spots on the map and you didn't know where you were getting shot from. And I definitely felt it at times. So this is something that betas serve their purpose, right? Is to give EA Dice as much data as possible so they can fix those issues, plug those holes in the map, and try to, eliminate as many cheaters as possible and even discourage the behavior with additional punishments, right? Like bans and different things like that. So if EA and Dice can fix that, they got about 30 days before Battlefield releases. Battlefield releases October 10th. So they got a little bit of time, to fix it, to iron out those kinks. And if they can, it could really, truly bring Battlefield back as a franchise, or at best, finally be able to compete with Call of Duty, But yeah, that was my experience with the Battlefield 6 beta. Like I said, I had a good time on the first weekend. The second weekend, not so much. I really wasn't inspired to pick it up and play it a whole lot. That's why we only streamed it about 1 or 2 times, but I did play it a lot off camera. But, we only streamed it once or twice simply because by the second weekend, I just wasn't having fun, just constantly getting dropped in the map or getting taken down with the shotgun, which definitely needs some balance in here. Hopefully they can get that right before the multiplayer officially launches in October. But I just wasn't having fun. And I'm like, man, Battlefield 6 feels like it has the potential. Like EA Dice knows what it needs to do to bring Battlefield back. They're on the right path. They're taking the right steps, right? It's just, they're either just kind of trucking along the way or they're taking their sweet time. Because, Battlefield, this is the experience they're aiming for. And while I did have, I guess you could say, I had more fun playing Battlefield 6 beta than I did here recently playing Black Ops 6, that's not really saying a lot, because I also enjoyed the Black Ops 6 beta and then end up not really enjoying the multiplayer a whole lot. So I'm hoping that's not the case with Battlefield, but with the beta, for all signs and indication points that Battlefield is potentially back. And when it drops here in October, we'll know officially for sure. And when we get the campaign trailer, we'll also get a better idea of how the other side of Battlefield 6 will be packaged and presented. So we will be there for that. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. If you haven't yet, do me a favor and like this video for me. And if you're new to the channel, hopefully I earned your subscription with the notification bell turned on so you can catch all future live streams and videos as they're published. But that's all I got for this one, y'all. I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy.